Oh, maybe I won't wear white when I'm doing this. That seems a bit bright, doesn't it? Trying to get things right here with the lighting and everything. Out of doors. At least the weather's nice. Hope you can hear me. It's been very rainy lately, but today it's been really perfect. So I just keep fingers crossed for Saturdays that it doesn't rain me out at 5 o'clock. So here I am. Hello. I see there are 6 of you in there. Hello. Hi. Oh, good. Oh, my bangs are in a funny shape. I'd cut them myself. Oh dear, did that fall? Yes. Ugh. This little table has slats in it. I should probably bring a little tray out because the cigarettes just roll right down the slats. So, no. Oh, me too. I still need to do something. I've been hearing about flooding in other places in the Netherlands and Germany, and I've been a little busy dealing with some stuff here I have to do. But I kind of want to see if I can help out just Saturdays. I'm a Saturday smoker. Should I make that a thing like hashtag Saturday smoker? Oh, we got some butterflies over there. That's nice. Yeah, it's been a bit floody around, and I was thinking I should try to find out if there's some way I can help people. If it was my house, I could invite people over. But yeah, I need to see if I can do anything. I hate just donating money because you never know who to donate money to, and I don't always have a lot of money to donate. It'd be nice to be able to do something because a lot of people are getting flooded out right now, and that's, I sure wouldn't want I wouldn't want that to happen to me. So I hope I can help in some way since I am not flooded out. Anyway, weather's nice here. I wanted to show you something I found at the store the other day because I get super excited about the tiniest things if they're like eco-friendly or more environmentally friendly than usual. So I found these 100% recycled nylon body lighters. So I don't know if that'll show up backwards or not, but had to buy it even though I've got like a zillion lighters. But oh, made in Holland too. Keep out of reach of children. So I couldn't help it. I wanted to share that. But they're called Cricket Eco. So if you want to be a little more eco-friendly, maybe you can get those, or maybe matches. You know. Oh, I was just reading again today. I was going through some old emails. Something about actually about cigarettes and how they are like the #1 pollutant of oceans, like above plastic, and they just go down storm drains. And the oh, that was another thing. The filters. I actually bought. How do you describe it? A giant pack of like empty cigarettes. Hello. So they're empty, and the filters are biodegradable, and the white part is like not bleached. So I'm kind of going to make up my own stuff to put in there. I've been looking up herbs that are pleasant to smoke, in addition to cannabis, because I thought that would be fun, and I like the idea of yeah, environmentally friendly things, as many things as I can, you know, reasonably, what's the word, you know, bring into my life. I just blanked on it, a word, I don't know. So yeah, I'll be kind of stuffing my own cigarettes with those. I didn't bring the box down, but maybe next week. All white, all white. I wonder, you know, I saw some all black ones on, well, they were like, you know, empty ones. I think they were the empty ones, all black ones on Amazon, and I thought that looked pretty cool. But they were kind of expensive. And then I found these environmentally friendly ones, which always appeals to me. But if anyone does see all white ones or something, either empty or herbal or something, just send me a link or something. I'll look at it. That would look very nice, all white cigarettes. But I kind of wonder, is it because, like, did she have a filter on her cigarettes? Because in Charade, she broke the filter off and oh yeah, the hat. You know what, I forgot. I will try to remember for next week. I did actually just get a new little hat. I gotta think what to wear with it. I mean, I have a bunch of hats. They're a little more formal usually, but I did just get this new little like blue and white hat that you like stuff all your hair up in for bad hair days. But yeah, maybe next week. I forgot about that. Sorry. Eventually I'll get there. We're only on chapter 5. We've got time. Anyway, speaking of that, we should get started. And oh, I can't wait to see if that actually works. Just in case, I did bring my backup lighter because I have learned in so many cases in life, just always have a backup. I should also like keep a backup phone out here, backup everything, backup everything. Oh yeah, that works. Okay, see, look at that. Ooh, it's blowing that way. Anyway, that works. But we will start reading. Yes. Also tonight at 6 p.m., in an hour-ish, my new video comes up and I start reading, not while smoking, sorry. Gotta protect these diaries. Although reading outside, actually. Maybe for the next diary I'll read outside. But I start reading a new diary by a guy in the 30s. The plan there, though, I mean, I'm not going to read the full diary on YouTube. I'm doing one episode, and then the rest will go onto buymeacoffee.com / Kendall Brenneman. So I don't fill up this channel with the diary readings, because there are a lot of diaries to read. Anyway, just going to kind of make that a different thing than my YouTube channel over there, but it's a fun one, I think. He goes on a cruise across the ocean and then a kind of a Catholic tour of Europe. So I'll start that tonight. Let's see what else. Also, I do try to look up as often as I can without getting lost in my reading. So I try to catch messages. I still am curious how that super chat thing works, what that would look like, and how much that donates or whatever. So if you want to try that. Yeah, I should probably write down notes of things I want to bring up before I talk, but I can be kind of spontaneous. Okay, I just don't want to pull my camera over with my cord here, so let me just adjust. And I like having this in the frame, but I'm gonna pull the camera over. Okay, this is my, just prop my little foot up here. And I shall start reading and then start smoking. Right now I have 2 of each, the 2 real ones and 2 herbal ones. So, all right, let's get into Audrey voice. And yes, I know, one of these days I don't know, I'm too nervous to like go full Audrey on these things. I should try. It's mostly voice practice here. Not so much mannerisms and everything. But yeah. I'll get there. But for now, we just read. All right. The week of retreat before the taking of vows was over. Then the mistress of novices gathered up her flock and led them to the chapter hall for final instructions. She described the ritual of the exchange of white scapulars and veils for black ones, and the signing on the altar of the written promise of obedience to God and their legitimate superiors for the period of 3 years, when they would then make their perpetual vows. The parchment with its holy promise would be transferred with them henceforth to wherever they might be sent, and when they died, it would be placed in their folded hands to go with them into the grave. The bronze crucifix that hung over the heart of every nun would be given to them at the altar, and also the white choir cape worn always in the chapel by the professed. I shall someone hi. Sorry. It's a little bit of a breeze. Okay. The mistress had her own cape there to show them how it went on. It had no seams or side openings. It slipped over the head and fell in loose pleats from shoulders to shoes, and had a slight train at the back. It's getting on the book. The cuffs, that's a little awkward there, but it's blowing that way. Any tips? I don't know. The cuffs of the white sleeves reached almost to the floor, and when you made the deep hand-crossing bow to a superior, the sleeves followed the hands and folded over like wings. There was one other item they would receive after vows, which explained the curious sound you heard in the dormitories twice each week for a few minutes after lights out. The mistress took from her pocket a small metal ring with 5 chains suspended from it and a pointed hook at the end of each chain. "This is a discipline," said the mistress. It was the instrument of external penance. The professed must whip this device over their bare shoulders every Wednesday and Friday nights for the duration of the saying of the miserere. Wait, what is this one? You know, I pronounced it well before. Miserere. I did look that up, but she cautioned about excess in the use of this mortification. It was as much of an imperfection to overdo it as it was to pretend to do it or not to do it at all. Not to do it at all. Sister Luke looked steadily at the flagellant device. Do you know how these words that you can pronounce them in your head, but then when you try to say them, it doesn't quite work out. I can read it perfectly well, but that's not where it counts. I can use that to good advantage, she thought. I can use that on my sudden hungers for oysters, on the flare-ups of carnal desire that sometimes torment my body by day and my dreams by night, on my nagging longings for the latest medical books, theatres, symphonies, mountain climbing in the Ardennes. Those little chains and sharp hooks will give me something else to think about. She tried not to imagine her father's explosive reaction to such practice, but his indignant voice prevailed against her will. Neurotic women flailing themselves to take their minds off the natural life that God intended for them, she heard him cry. He had no idea, because he had never tried to lift himself out of the natural life, that it was not sex that haunted you 1/10 as often as, say, a plump oyster on the half-shell, which could dominate your thoughts when you knew you could never eat another one unless, like a miracle, it would appear one day on your wooden plank in the refectory. Private self-flagellation as a penance, said the mistress, is countenanced in our order providing that it is moderate. You will be doing this penance twice weekly for the remainder of your religious lives. Put the emphasis, therefore, on its spiritual meaning, which is real contrition for your sins, rather than on the physical force with which you apply it. For the remainder of our religious lives, Sister Luke felt as if she had already lived 10 religious lives. She looked back over her year and a half of trying to live the Holy Rule, not day by day, but minute by minute, as you had to do. It was like remembering a protracted fever, wherein you reached and never quite grasped. You had babbled constantly to yourself in that fever about what you liked most to do, to eat, to say, then had driven yourself into doing, eating, or saying the exact opposite so as to please God instead of pleasing yourself. And every so often, in and out of the hot tensions of that novitiate, doubts had prowled and queried, borrowing your own voice to ask, was I truly called? How can I know until I try it, if I have the vocation for the religious life? And even after, how can I know, since the trying itself transforms and leaves you no more self to ask? She wondered as she looked at her sister novices if her own face reflected the changes she could see in theirs. There had been a definite refining, such as high fevers often give to a countenance. Even the coarse, healthy faces of the novices who worked in truck gardens had taken on a singular purity. Try to avoid singularization, the mistress had told them once. Anything that singularizes, whether inwardly or outwardly, is but the self asserting itself, a sign that we have not succeeded in suppressing the old self, that we may be born again in the Christ. Sounds like fun. No. It's getting hot. And yet, Sister Luke's thought, our very life has singularized us, not one from the other, but all of us from the rest of the world. Even if we did not wear habits of archaic distinction, the singularization would still be seen in the way we walk prim and stylized, in the way we talk with the possessives my and mine, gone from our vocabularies, and the words I cannot, forever screened from our speech. And conscience, she thought, that intuitive sense of moral right and wrong which everyone is born with, but which our rule has drained and toughened with the twice daily exercise of it, until it has grown from a still small voice to a functioning vital organ within us. She glanced at two of her companions who, it was rumoured, were not going to make their vows. They would probably return to the world from which, apparently, they had been unable to detach to their own conscientious satisfaction. Their fervent faces were like all the others in the row, refined to a delicacy that had not been there when they had entered as blushing postulants. How long would it take them to unlearn the nun's gliding, swayless walk, the gestureless speech bereft of possessives, the habitual custody of the eyes downcast? It's going to be terribly difficult for them at first, she thought with compassion, with a year and a half of this iron discipline to undo. Sucipe me Domine. The 200 sisters sang them to their vows. Before advancing to the altar, they lay prostrate in the centre of their nave, the visible symbol of their dying to the world, to their families watching from the visitors' section, and to their old selves still clothed in the novice white. The treble choirs raised them up with the Gloria Patri, and sent them forward to the altar in steps as slow and measured as the Gregorian chant which presently the officiating Monsignor picked up from the singing sisters and carried on in a grave baritone. My eco-friendly lighter works perfectly. It's pretty too, I like the color. Pretty. See? The other ones are just, I like these muted colors. The what do you call it? Pastels, kind of, and blues and greens. My favorite color is, it's not quite this, that's a little, well, I like it. My favorite color is like a teal, different shades of teal. I even painted, I had a mobile home on the Pacific Coast Highway, and when I had to repaint the porch, the deck, I painted it teal. Nice bright teal. Oh, butterflies. Save thy handmaiden, O Lord, for in thee is her hope. Let her be good and humble. Let her be exalted by obedience. Let her be bound to peace. Let her be constant in prayer. Lastly, O Lord, we beg thee to receive graciously her offerings. And mine to you, O Lord, are the things I do at the bedside of the dying, when I listen to the expiring breath and watch the hands twist the coverlets. Mine to you is the certainty of your nearness when these signs appear, and the promise that I will bring quickly a priest or pastor or rabbi of the faith, and of the moribund upon whom he depends to bridge the gap between him and you. I have not much more besides love than skilled fingers, a strong back and tireless feet to offer. Mine to you, O Lord. The expert hands of a professed nun put on the black scapula and buttoned it down the side. The crucifix, leather belt, and rosary came next, and then the white choir cape was dropped over her shoulders to fall of its own weight in chiseled folds to the floor. She had the little pin box reset with black-headed pins, in readiness when the dark veil was draped around her snowy coif. The ceremony closed with the antiphon Confirma hoc Deus. Not so great with my Latin, as she signed her name in religion on the paper laid out for her on the high altar. I think we've got a squirrel. Are you going to listen? Hello. Later in the crowded parlor, she could not at once see her family. Tante Colette was wiping her eyes and calling, "Gabrielle, here we are," from the edge of the crowd, but she did not turn around to that name. Patiently, politely, and very slowly, she circled the room until she came across the ones who had been crying a name she no longer responded to, not even in reflex reaction. Her father looked exactly as he had a year ago, after vesture, as he said the same words, "You are thinner, ma petite Gabi." Only the music that lingered in her ears was different. The posuit signum was the vocal undertone that confused her now with its piercing sweetness. "He has set a seal on my face so that I may know no other love but his." And then she thought to say, "It's probably the effect of the black scapular, cher papa. You remember how Mama always used to say that black gives the longer line." The effect of the black veil and scapular was visible in another way when the parlor doors closed on their families and the newly professed returned to the community. Now there were postulants and white-robed novices studying them with respect, looking up to them from below, as it were, from the place where the words "I promise" had not yet been said. Above or beyond were the fully professed, the perpetually vowed, from whom they were still separated by the traditional silence, although clothed exactly like them in every respect. No outsider could have told the difference between the first and the fully professed, but the older nuns knew in an instant who was who. The moment they spotted the newly garbed down the long perspective of a corridor or at the head of the marble stairs, their eyes grew alert for faults. The recognition of us as instantaneous, Sister Luke thought, as if we carried sandwich boards over our shoulders to proclaim from back and front and in 3 languages that we are 1 day old professed. The sixth sense of her senior sisters puzzled her, but not for long. She saw the first visible signs of the subjective results of profession that same day, in the last recreation, the newly professed were to have together before being sent away next morning to other houses. Her companions came as usual with their little black bags, but some of them, she observed, had the look of sleepwalkers. Their wide-open eyes seemed to be focused on a distant glory as they made their bows to the presiding mistress and took the nearest unoccupied chair without, as formerly, looking about to choose a place in the circle where their presence might do the most good, next to a white-robed novice, for example, who was obviously overcome by the change in a sister who but yesterday had looked no different from herself. Okay, another word. Those somnambulists, Sister Luke told herself, I did look this up, like a sleepwalker, are the potential mystics separating themselves. She had heard about this. Was it from Sister William in her lay student days? She took out her darning and remarked to her companion on the right that trotting through miles of hospital corridors certainly wore out the stockings fast, while she tried to remember the voice that had said, "The tendency toward mysticism is always a problem in a mixed order such as ours, where work and contemplation must go hand in hand. One sees this often in the newly professed, and while it is a very beautiful thing to see a young nun apparently communing directly with God, she is nevertheless lost to the community when, in that rapture and someone else's mind, hands and feet must do her work meanwhile. One can never know, of course, if it is the real thing, or simply one of those unconscious singularizations to which we all fall prey from time to time." Still smoking? Okay. See which way the wind's blowing. The silence of the preoccupied ones did not escape the attention of the presiding mistress. She drew the dreamers back into the sewing circle with direct questions about their assignments, giving them lively vignettes of the Mothers Superior in those affiliated houses. Sister Luke noted with secret amusement that the mistress found a way to liken one of those superiors to Saint Teresa of Avila, the Spanish Carmelite who, though one of the greatest mystics, was at the same time a remarkably practical and astute woman, reputed to have said of a group of starry-eyed novices, "We don't need any more saints here, but rather plenty of strong arms for scrubbing." The black scapula and the shining new crucifix hanging over her heart gave Sister Luke no illusion that her own spiritual condition had grown more rarefied. She felt mainly a tremendous relief that the strain of the unprofessed novitiate was over, that God in his infinite mercy had accepted her humble offerings, and that henceforth, now that she was one of his, there would happen to her only what he would permit to happen. Whatever that might be, as the mistresses said so very often, it would be for his glory and for her own good. Later, in the refectory, the inner transformation of the newly professed was more clearly visible. Their zeal for perfection made their section of the long processional toward the tables resemble one of those mechanical marvels like Britain's trooping of the colours. With her eyes on the heels of the sister in front of her, and her own advancing foot falling like an Indian's onto the exact spot vacated by the preceding, Sister Luke felt herself drawn into the perfection of her group's first appearance as professed in the community. She made ready to cross herself like a soldier, counting 1, 2, 3 before the signal to start the prayers. When she lifted her eyes after the Amen, she thought she saw a look of ennui on the faces of the perpetually vowed, though far distant at the tables adjoining the superiors, seemed nevertheless to be keenly aware of what went on below the salt, where some of those newly professed were singularizing themselves. She would know in a few years what a strain it was to have the newly professed in a community. She too would be drawn to look at the youngest brides, to lose the custody of her eyes to curiosity. She too would feel the pride and the pang when new blood came upon the scene, hot and eager for dedication. But much of their brave show of perfection vanished that evening when they were apart from the community and waiting in the corridor outside the office of the mistress of novices. You could feel the undertow of emotion as they each rehearsed the last private talk with the living rule who had guided their steps to this moment of leave-taking. Only a few, like Sister Luke, were able to fight back the tears. Tomorrow they would be separated to start their lives as young nuns in strange communities far from the fountainhead of their rule. In smaller houses they would be on their own, with no more than perhaps a score of senior sisters to watch over them and help them keep their feet on the narrow path of poverty and obedience. They would be much nearer to the temptations of the world. The mother house that had cradled them in their religious life would be henceforth a fortress in memory only. They would not return to it until called in to make their final vows 3 years later, and if, before that, they were sent overseas to a mission and made their final vows to some local mother superior in India, China, or the Congo, they would not see the mother house again. They would not see the mother house until they would have earned the furlough in the home country. The holy rule was, of course, established in them, in the mind and spirit, in the muscles and the heart, but they seemed to know that it was an extremely fragile and shakeable establishment, like any great alliance. And had they not, their forlorn faces seemed to say, made the greatest of all an alliance with God? Sister Luke had conflicting emotions about leaving the mother house. She was going to enter the school of tropical medicines, the first real step toward the future she had prayed for, which was a life of service to God as a missionary nurse in some faraway place. For the next 8 months, she would be a nun in transit, still attached to the mother house, but boarded far away from it in a girls' school near the university, where a small community of nuns, professors mostly, would replace the 200 pairs of eyes that watched over her now. She could not tell if her inner excitement was for the thought of escape from the big community to a small one where, moreover, long study hours would dispense her from much of the community life, or whether it stemmed from the realization that she was at last on her way toward that diploma in tropical medicines, which was the passport her order required for nursing supervisors in the Congo. She thought of a visit to Sister Eudoxie, the vestiaire, as she awaited her turn to say farewell to the mistress of novices. She had gone with her missal, her little office, and her meditation books to hand these over to the vestiaire for packing. She had never before been inside the cave-like workroom where the old nun, known as the Cyclopean Eye of the community, had spent the half-century of her cloistered life mending and altering the habits of nuns and supervising a large staff of novices and postulants who mended hospital linens. Save for the obligatory attendance at meals and devotions, Sister Eudoxie was seldom seen outside her silent workroom. She knew, nevertheless, nearly all there was to know about the private lives of her sisters. She could read in any garment she mended the total life of the one to whom it belonged, and, sight unseen, could judge that nun's perfections and faults. Your laundry gives you away. A worn place on the back of a skirt hem told her that the wearer was careless about lifting her skirt from the rear when descending stairs, a thoughtless waste of good material which translated instantly into an imperfection against poverty. Sister Eudoxie personified the holy rule even more than the gracious living images of it, as embodied in the mistresses, and it was whispered among the young nuns that she had, in addition to the rule, all its bylaws, bibliographies, and historical references bound into her venerable frame. Sister Luke had stood outside the workroom door for a moment to calm her childlike rebellion at the thought of someone else packing her suitcase. When she was sure her smile showed no frayed edges, she knocked and entered, murmuring, "Praised be Jesus Christ." The vestiere's eyes, sharp as the needles she threaded without aid of spectacles, looked up at her and seemed to penetrate her habit right down to the drawstrings of stockings and serre-tête, testing their tensions. She beckoned her to approach and picked up a tape measure. She had the card of number 1072 before her with all the bodily measurements since entry. She made a cricket sound when she measured and found Sister Luke's waist 3 inches less than the measure at vesture a year ago. Sister Luke hunted words that might be safely addressed to a monument historique, words that would not suggest criticism of the vestiary department for having possibly issued a skirt too large, or would not seem to invite pity for having lost so much weight. "I believe, sister," she said, "that this skirt may have stretched a bit." She looked at the old nun, examining her loose skirt band and writing the new waist measurements on the 1072 clothing card. A thought struck her as she watched the veined hands scarcely moving over the card. So tiny, so space-saving was the script. For half a century, in this same small corner of the immense convent world, this sister had been content to serve the Lord with her thimble, taking in the skirt bands of struggling young ones and letting them out years after when struggle reaches the equilibrium of adjustment that allows a little fat to gather at the waist. Up and down those overhead stairs whole generations of nuns have passed on their way to schools and hospitals all over Belgium and beyond, to India, Africa, the Orient, and all that this great pageant of Christ's work being carried to the world has meant for this old nun has been an endless succession of wicker hampers filled with clothing to be mended. She managed to conceal her emotion before Sister Eudoxie looked up. "Tonight after the salve," said Sister Eudoxie, "you will find another skirt on your dressing stand, and you will leave this one there when you depart tomorrow." Sister Luke bowed and withdrew from the presence of a self-sacrifice so complete that it stunned her. As she closed the door behind her, she prayed God to give her a wider horizon for her own sacrifice to Him. It was her turn now to enter the office of the mistress of novices. The mistress was sitting at her desk. A slight flush warmed the chilly beauty of her face, suggesting that she too, despite her rigid control, had been touched by the departure emotions. Her lips curved in a smile as she handed to Sister Luke a small leather sack with the hooked chains in it, her going-away present to the young ones she had trained to fortitude. "Remember my words on moderation," she said. "This is not my discipline, sister. Mine is the common life, the community," said Sister Luke. It was a relief to talk frankly for once, to lay down simple words of fact without all the circumlocutions of convent etiquette. But of course you have seen that. How are we doing? I always thought you very adaptable, Sister Luke. You were one of the few who never asked to be excused. I don't know that I have any merit from this, but I made myself an automaton for all the community life, except of course the devotions. It has been a constant self-beating. The mistress shook her head. "That is not the way, sister, not as an automaton," she said. "But I'm glad you told me, and you must believe me when I tell you I understand." She paused to consider her words, then with astonishing candor she went on. "Once, long ago, I too found the community life a pure agony. I suffered, knowing that my forced participation could never be pleasing to God. I struggled to overcome this. I thought about the Christ who took to himself the very humblest of companions. I told myself that quite possibly he could not abide the smell of fish, or the frequently childish talk of those simple disciples. Yet he lived with them and spoke with them in the picturesque parables they could understand. He who had confounded the scholars of the temple when only 12 years old. That, my sister, was the first community. That is our example." Sister Luke wished that the mistress had not said that. She knew she would never forget the lesson or the way it had been given. It was as if the mistress had, for an instant, taken off her mask of discipline and had let her see the aristocratic face sensitized by centuries of breeding, its thin nostrils shrinking thinner at the mention of fish odors. Her joy for escape to a smaller community and for dispensations from its common life turned to a feeling of shame and guilt. "I have felt sometimes I was exploiting the community," she said, "taking so much from it and giving so little back. Because you say that, you will learn." The mistress gave her a last smile, then became a living rule again. "Now, Sister Luke," she said, "you go forth. Have always an open heart for your superior. As for your new community, begin with it each day before you meet it. Begin the day with a review of your sisters. Some you will like, some you will not. For those you may instinctively dislike, try to do something. Remember, the golden rule for antipathy is to ask to do a service for the one your spirit withdraws from. There is no surer way of conquering both yourself and her. In your new community, you will be one of the youngest in life. Take every duty you see uncovered. Replace the pot washers when one is ill. Do all this simply. Let no one remark it, only God. And for yourself," she said more slowly, "for a doctor's daughter accustomed to comfort and social position, try to be the little donkey of Jesus who goes his way without prodding. Take up every burden without any murmuring. Take it like that little donkey who carried the hope of the world up the stony slopes of Jerusalem." Sister Luke emerged from the mistress's office, just like all her other companions, with tears in her eyes and clutching the lumpy little sack of chains with hooks on their ends. They left the mother house next morning after Mass. In the chapel, they all lost the custody of their eyes. Sister Luke lost hers to the Reverend Mother Emmanuel as she knelt, gaunt and rapt, at her prie-dieu, ignoring the wayward glances from the section of the newly professed. As if she knew that they needed for their long journey the last impressions they stole with their eyes, the silvery slants of dawnlight through the chapel windows, the motionless files of more sisters than they would ever see again in one place, the single figure in motion of the cantatrice, walking up and down between the two choirs and summoning from them an Agnus Dei that floated soft as fleece into the silence after the elevation. This plain chant I will miss always, Sister Luke said silently, wherever God wills that I go. The sisters sang them out of the chapel in their new white capes, with a slight train which kept them farther apart. As they paced slowly toward the doors, they heard the opening antiphon of the itinerary. In viam pacis, and may the angel Raphael accompany us in the way, and may we return in peace, health, and joy into our own home. Their papier-mâché suitcases, packed by Sister Eudoxie, were standing neatly in rows by the main door of the mother house. They said goodbye to each other with their eyes as they climbed into their separate buses, some for short journeys within the Kingdom of Belgium, others destined for ports and railroad stations through which they would travel far out on the branches of the family tree of their congregation. Sister Luke said the itineraries silently in communion with the sisters singing them on their way from behind walls she did not need to look at to remember. May the God of our salvation give us a prosperous journey. That is the end of chapter 5. Funny. I mean, that was like 40 minutes, but it doesn't really feel like 40 minutes. Bizarre. And I am just bright and shiny white here. Okay. Note to self, don't wear white. But, yeah. So that is the reading for today. Thoughts? I didn't see any comments. Thank you. Yes, I like my striped shirt. It just does not go well in this lighting. I am glowing. Yes, what's behind? Here it is. I don't know elsewhere. I know it's been raining and flooding in a lot of places. It was an uncanny Kendall Burnham impression. Wait a minute. Yes. Yes, that'd be funny. Could do Audrey Hepburn mimicking Kendall Burnham. No, it's a little much for me. You know what, though? That reminded me, in high school, the Audrey Hepburn story with Jennifer Love Hewitt had come out, and we had some kind of dress-up day, like Hollywood dress-up day or something, and I didn't know what to be, and I was like, I can't really pull off Audrey Hepburn. Like, I don't remember what I wore. It was a pretty thrown-together thing, and I never could do my hair because it was like down to my waist, and still can't do my hair very well. I managed to get it puffy today. Anyway, I joked that my costume was Jennifer Love Hewitt as Audrey Hepburn, so that was my costume. There's a picture somewhere. Don't know where that is, but funny. Oh, what else? Yeah, the weather is really nice today, so that's nice. Haven't spent enough time outside though. Been working on the computer. But what time is it actually? I can't tell. Again, didn't wear my watch. But soon, 6 o'clock, my new video will be up, and I'm reading from a new diary, so check that out. The first couple minutes are me talking first about the new setup I'm going to do with the diaries. Yeah, I'm at least going to finish this book. I'm not quite sure what to do when the weather turns, but we'll deal with that later. For now, I'll just keep doing this on Saturdays, as long as the weather's good. But yes, tune in if you like the reading. You can watch the new diary thing tonight. The first couple minutes I'm kind of talking, and then I share a picture of the guy when he was younger, and so it takes a couple minutes to get into the video because I was explaining my new buymeacoffee.com thing. Why am I glowing so much? No, I am a hashtag Saturday smoker. No, yeah. And I'm going to, I don't know if you were here in the beginning, but I bought some empty, more eco-friendly cigarettes, like empty ones that the filters are biodegradable, because usually they are not, and they are super harmful to the environment. Don't throw them on the street, guys. and they're like unbleached white part, whatever that's called. So I'm going to kind of stuff myself and put different herbs in it and see what that's like. Just reading up on what herbs I should buy or dry out or something. Just as a little experiment. And if you didn't know already, I like eco-friendly things. So got my recycled plastic lighters here, and I'll have those environmentally friendly cigarettes. Hello. So maybe next week I'll have them ready, but maybe not. The time flies. I have so much I'm trying to get done, and the time just flies by. Well, yeah, I mean, like, well, I do as much as I can here. I gotta read too, but I pretty much filled the time. What do I like about the nun story? It's just interesting to learn about that kind of life, although I bet it's been different throughout history. Heard all sorts of different stories, nuns who voluntarily went in and nuns that were forced in. Let's see. There are a couple things that happen later in the book that are a little more exciting. Oh, now I'm not glowing. Oh, now I'm glowing again. Okay. I don't know. It's just an interesting book. I like also there are more details in it than there are in the movie, so it was nice to read the source for the film. Saturdays. Just Saturdays. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they couldn't like talk to each other or touch each other. Like, that's a lot of unnecessary discipline, really. So I like the meditation and, you know, that sort of thing, like a spiritual focus. I like that, but I think they go way overboard and kind of take away things you need to survive as a healthy human. So, yeah, don't think I could be a nun, and well, I don't know how they do it these days. I don't know if they've lightened up. I understand some of the training, you know, but I mean, monks, you see monks, and it's impressive, but I think a real spiritual life has to come from the inside and not so much from the rules you're following and stuff like that. So, now I'm not glowing again, but no, I'm not going to wear white again. All right, I should get going. I have to go do some studying for the driving test. In a way, it's enjoyable. I want to, like, it would be more enjoyable if, like, it tasted better. I mean, it doesn't taste terrible, but I would like something that tasted sweeter. So I don't know, I'm going to check out some other herbs that I might like better and just, mess around with what's smokable. Because I think having an enjoyable flavor would be nice, you know? But I don't hate it. Okay, so I should get going now. Thanks for joining me again, and I'll see you next week. Thank you. Yes. Oh, that is when is that? Next Thursday or Friday? So I'm having real difficulty. I'm using an app and practicing, and good grief. I mean, I know kind of where I failed the first time around, and it was like, who has priority here? And I'm like, not so good at that. So I need to do a lot more of that practice because I want to pass and not do it again because it's not free. And then move on to the other part of the test because there are 2 parts of the test I need to pass. Okay, well, I will see you later. Thanks for joining me. Check out my new video in a couple minutes. If you want more of me reading, but not in Audrey's accent, there will be more of that in the future as well as these live streams. I have some ideas. Yeah, like I said, I'm not going to wear white again. I learned that is too bright for this corner. I think this corner would have nice lighting, but I need to wear something darker. Oh well, we learn every time. So that's the lesson today. I'll talk to you later. See you next week. Bye.